Hello YouTube there. Hello YouTubers. Today we're going to talk about wheel bearings. How to do them and what to listen for. If you hear like a humming in your car, and the louder or the faster you go, the louder it gets, it's normally an indication of your wheel bearing. You just need to figure out whether it's front or back, left or right, blah blah blah. Bearing. So we've got a Ford Focus here with a wheel bearing gone. Now this is only my opinion, but it's up to yourself. We've only got one wheel bearing gone, but I personally would replace them both. Because if you got one gone, the other one's not far away, do you know? So anyway, this is what one should sound like. When I spin it, this is the good one. There's no play in this wheel, up or down or side to side. And when I spin it, you can't hear anything. That's good. Now, let's go to the one where it's bad. So this is the bad wheel bearing. Now, you might feel a bit of play. Now the camera's going to pick this up, but I've got play up and down. Hopefully you can hear that. So there's play up and down. So I know there's something gone, but what's really important is the noise. So when I spin this, I'll put up my mic next to it. Hope that comes through. Now, so that's how we know it's this one that's gone. So I'm going to replace this one and show you how it's done. Now we're going to whip off the wheel. Now, you've really got one or two options. You've got cars with drum brakes. See how really bad that is. Right, you have two options here now. You either have ones with disc brakes and hubs. Obviously this is one with the hub. That's obviously kind of obvious. As you can hear, it's really bad. What we need to now do is take off the center cap here, and we need to take off the nut that's in behind it. But we can have a couple of issues. Obviously we've got shoes here, and that works off your handbrake. If these shoes are really tight, you're going to have to slacken off the handbrake and to allow you to get the hub off. Then once you put the hub back on, you have to retighten it, and there is an adjuster in here, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So hopefully, to be fair, the handbrake on this car is good. So if I can get away with just taking out the centre bolt and this coming off, I don't have to adjust the handbrake. But I'll show you regardless how to adjust the handbrake once we get into it. So first thing you need to do is get a screwdriver in here and pop off this cap. Now don't worry about this cap if you bend it or break it, because you get a new one with the new bearing. So you just basically try to get this off. I am damaging it, but like I said, you get a new one. So pulls off. I think that's a 30 or 32 mil. So we get the air gun on that, whip that off. Now it's a 30 mil socket with an air gun. And off she blows. Now again, you get a new nut. This is actually broke. The washer is supposed to be on that, but it doesn't matter because we get a new one. So that's actually come apart. Don't worry about it. Now this is where I'm hoping I can just literally slide this off without doing any adjustment. I might not be able to. Give it a wiggle. That doesn't work. Get a hammer. That's the washer. That's come apart. That washer is supposed to be a part of that. But again, don't worry about that. Now what also could be the problem is we might not be catching on the brakes, we could be catching on the bearing, because this bearing is completely shot. So we could have a problem with the bearing on the stub axle more so than the brakes. So see, I can see the bearing in the middle unfortunately isn't moving, which means we have a problem. So I'm hoping just a few more taps of the hammer. Right, it is moving out, so that's a good sign. Now what I can actually feel, I know I haven't got a problem with the shoes. My problem is the stub axle, the bearing in the middle. I can feel that the shoes are definitely free enough. So it's just a case of really just keep tapping it with the hammer and hitting it. You have to be very careful if you hit it here. Make sure you hit the drum and not the plate behind it, and just very lightly. And it's just going to take a few minutes to wiggle this thing out, and then we should be sound again. Now, as we can see, it's just come off. This is a stub axle here. You want to also check that there's no damage, there's no wearing or any scuff marks on here, because if there is, you have to replace that. These are obviously your shoes, and this is your adjuster. And basically the way to adjust these brakes is you get a thinner screwdriver in this, and this is on two little cams, and if you put the screwdriver in and leave it, you'll actually open up this part, which will make the brakes harder, well, make the brakes wider, which means you're adjusting them. We don't, lucky enough, have to do that. They are a nightmare to adjust, because the way you do it, obviously you have to open it out, try and fit the hub back on. If the hub doesn't go back on, you've opened them up too far, so you have to get a balance between the hub just fitting and not being too hard to get on. They're a bit of a nightmare to adjust, but lucky enough we don't have to. Also then there is adjustment in the handbrake. So, you know, if these still are a bit loose, you can adjust them in the handbrake. So yeah, there's about 50% left on these pads, on these shoes even, so we're good. And it's no harm just to get a bit of sandpaper and just rough these up a bit, just get these a bit more grippier. So we're going to do that, but no point me showing you that because I've just told you. So next thing we need to do is take out the bearing from the hub. Now this is what we get in the kit. Now don't be scared if you get too much in the kit, because sometimes this bearing could fit a few different cars, so they might just shove everything in depending on your car. You get the bearing, get the new bolts. Now you only need one of these clips, and there's two in here. I don't know why there's two. Could be, like I said, for another car, someone accidentally put one in. You get the actual shield. Now this is the ABS ring. This is very important, you don't damage this. This is the new one. You have to damage the old one, take it off, but this is the ABS ring. You have to make sure this is good, otherwise your ABS light will come back on. Obviously that's not a good job. So that's what you get in the kit. And what we're going to do now is take off the ABS ring, which is there. Same hammer and screwdriver. This, you don't particularly have to worry about it, because you've got the new one. You don't have to worry about it. So, and I have already checked this, but you also want to check that everything's right. Obviously I can't check the wheel bearing yet because I haven't got it out, but I've checked the ABS ring and it's the same size, so we're okay. Now you just need to get this off any way you can, really. There's a few ways of doing it. You get a screwdriver in there, put your foot there, and you can just kind of go all the way around the edge with it. That sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to get a little bit more creative. Now I just went in from the top and lifted it off. Now as you can see, we can see the circlip in there. We need to whip out the circlip. Now we have two different types of circlip tools. You've one that's open and one that's closed, and they basically, one opens it, one closes it, so it depends which one you actually need. Now on this particular one, what we need to do is we need to squeeze this circlip together. We don't need to open it, we need to squeeze it. So we need the one that squeezes, not the one that opens. So all you do is you locate the studs. Now you have to be careful, there's two little studs here, and put your hand over it because they can flick up and hit your face, and believe me, they do hurt. So you get it in, squeeze it together, put your hand over it, put it to the side and quickly release it, because like I said, that can flick in your face and it does hurt. So this is the circuit pliers we got. As you can see, look, it squeezes it together, which obviously makes it smaller. And then to put it back in, we do the same thing. We get the new one, obviously we squeeze it together and we shove it back in. What we need to do now is we need to press out this bearing, and obviously we need the press for this. And like everything, there's a few ways of doing it. The way I like to do it with here is just, I've got a 32mm socket, I put it on top of the old bearing, and I'm literally just going to press this down. These are the easy bearings to do. The ones in the front hub are a bit of a nightmare. So that's now in. Let this down a bit, get it level. Cameraman trip over a wire. Now with the press, it's important that you make sure you're getting an even press. It hasn't gone in sideways or anything like that. So when you get close, you want to line everything up. Make sure there's nothing blocking it from underneath to coming in. You want to get these in as far as you can without going in too far, which is fine there. I can now press this and see if it comes out. Now, that initial crack, that's what you want to hear. We know we've cracked it now, and this should come out really quite easy now. Just want to catch them at the bottom. Now, a couple of things. There is other ways of doing it without a press. You can buy this tool, has basically all different connections there, and a big threaded bar. You put it in and you screw the bar and it pushes it out. They do kind of work, but if your bearing's anyway stuck, it's just going to destroy the threads on the bar. The other good thing is, it's always best to keep the old bearings, because they do come in handy for, you know, pushing out old bearings, or just, you know, because they are quite big. So always keep your old bearings. And obviously once you've got your old one, what you need to do is double check it with the new one. So literally just make sure it's the same height, same width and everything. Simple as that, really. And then we can go and put it in. And obviously we need to turn it around, but we don't need to push out these studs. So we need to make sure the studs are clear. Now, I did get a comment on one of my other videos when I was doing a wheel bearing that you should clean out the inside there with sandpaper. I don't, and the reason I don't, unless it's rusty, if you start scratching that and it's on for a long time, that's going to go rusty, which is going to really stop, which is going to basically rust the new bearing. And if you ever need to take it back out, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Now if it is rusty, yes, do it, but if it's not rusty like this, nice and shiny, honestly there's no need. Now this bearing can go in either way, it doesn't really matter, because the ABS ring is on the outside. Sometimes it does matter which way the bearings go in and out. So all you need to do is we need to put it in. Make sure it's, now we have to make sure it's straight and not to one side. We need to put it in, and I need to get some lube like WD-40 or SAS, whatever you happen to use, squirt it on there just to make it a lot easier to go down. And we have some here, so just squeeze in there and squeezing around it. Now it's nicely lubed up. Same thing again, we need to get a socket. Now when we're putting it in, what you want to make sure is your socket isn't bigger than this. this fits on perfect in the middle. If your socket's too big, you're going to damage the lip of your bearing. So you want to make sure your socket is just that size, and as you can see, that is perfect. So we know we're okay with that. It's all lubed up, it's nice and straight. Now, like I said, you want to make sure this goes in nice and straight, and if you start seeing it going at an angle, stop, because you will do damage. It should go in fairly easy, there's no major pressure behind it. Obviously this is a 30-ton press, so it's going to sound easy, feel easy. But as you can see, that's going in absolutely no problem whatsoever. And you know when you've gone too far, you can't go too far. Now I've hit the base of the bearing now, so it can't go too far. One more pump just to doubly make sure, and release. And it's as simple as that, obviously, when you have a bearing press. So we need to get our new circlip. And the way you know you got it in far enough is this circlip obviously fits. So with a new circlip, just literally, again, put your hand over it so it doesn't go and hit you in the face. Make sure it's down. That will now slip. See, I can't lift that. That is now slipped into its own little cutout. So we know we're in far enough. That should go in nice and easy too. If it doesn't go in nice and easy, you've got a problem. Now, what we need to do now is put the ABS ring on. These are a bit of a nightmare because you can't damage this pickup here. So they are kind of a bit of a nightmare to get on. So again, what you want to do is make sure it's nice and flat. Get like a rubber hammer or a piece of your hammer, not the metal part, and just try and get it down. Make sure it's nice and level. Far off there now. Just pick it up and make sure you've got a nice level, it's not up on one side. Okay, there. Now, we're good. So that's it. And now, like I said, we want to put this back. We're going to clean this just with a rag and some lube again. Now you clean this with a rag. You don't want to be sanding this again because the same thing, this has to be so smooth. You don't want to put sandpaper anywhere near this. If this has any scrapes or lumps or anything taken out of it, your new bearing is not going to last 5 minutes. So you want to make sure that's nice and even and good, which it is, nice and shiny, so we're all good. And literally, just put it back. Again, you might need a bit of a wiggle. So that should go back by hand. See that? I didn't use the hammer, I didn't do anything. Gone back in. That's good. Now we get the new bolt and the new cap. As you can see, this one's all together. So put that in. Put it in by hand as much as you can. Yeah, gone back. Now you do want this tight. I'm going to tighten it by hand with a big bar at the minute, but I just want to make sure there's no, that's it now, there's no rocking. As we can hear, there's no more kind of horrible grinding sound. So that's it. Let's get the bar. Best just to give it a squeeze by hand, just to make sure you're okay. Now, I know that's good. New cap. Hammer. Now, that's it. Put the wheel back on and it's done. And if you want to see me do the other side, all you've got to do is wait for this video to finish and press play again. And there you go. Now, no point in putting the wheel back on. It's as simple as that. Look, I hope this helps. Thumbs up the video and subscribe. And don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one.